Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C calling in from the East Coast. This is the Charlton and Big C Sports Show. Today is beautiful March 24th, 2016, and we want to appreciate everyone for listening. We are growing leaps and bounds, especially our Twitter followers. I want to say hello to our Latin American audience. Bienvenidos. Lots of followers from Latin America, ESPN Deportes as well. And so for all of you out there, we want to appreciate you for listening in. We have some lightning rod topics we talk about today. But before Big C we get going, I just want to mention our condolences go out to Gary Chandler. His family lost another great comedian today, Big C.
Well, Gary Chandler, Charlton, passed away at the age of 66, and he had a long, illustrious career in Hollywood. Many people will not realize that this man was one of the lead writers on the show Sanford and Son back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Welcome Back, Carter, as well as Three's Company, Charlton. I mean, he had an illustrious writing career in Hollywood. Also, he did a lot of fill-ins for Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. So
yeah.
He was always a guest host when Johnny was taking nights off, Charlton.
Yeah, also a big Laker fan. And speaking of Laker fan, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealer, home of the Escalade. You can only get it new at your Northern California Cadillac dealer. Tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. And also, Big C, when we talk about Hollywood, we pay a lot of homage to the Hollywood actors because most of them are at Laker games. And we know we've had a lot of tragic happenings lately. Garagiola, the great voice of broadcast, but for several decades. But Hollywood is about going forward. It's about paying respect to everyone, but also understanding that these great men, they lived a life of their dreams. They were not sitting back hoping for things. Big C, they went out and made things happen.
Well, Charlton, they also paved the way. They created the acting guild. They made things better for young and upcoming actors who are coming along, so their struggles wouldn't be as great. When you think about the trailblazers of the past and how Hollywood has grown, it's like sports, Charlton.
Yeah.
Those people, the early trailblazers of the acting days, didn't make a wealth of money.
Right.
But now when you see actors like a Will Smith, a Tom Cruise, a Mel Gibson, when these guys are getting $20 to $40 million per film, or even a cut of the film, you think about the money that Avatar made.
Yeah.
Or even the Star Wars series.
Yeah.
These actors now, all they need is one film to be set for life, when the actors of the old days were working 3 and 4 films a year. Yeah,
that's definitely true. And so when we think about acting, and even when you look at the music industry, how a lot of actors want to do music, a lot of musicians want to do acting, and then they all want to be involved in sports. I think about another great, I want to call him musician, Kanye West. I know he's kind of a lightning rod, Big C, when you think about Kanye, even though he's done a great job as an entertainer. I think his biggest role was marrying Kim Kardashian. What are your thoughts on him, Big C?
Well, Kanye, his biggest role is being controversial, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for him. I mean, when you look at his music sales and stuff, they're middle of the road, but, the controversy that he has created in his life as far as battling other singers such as a Taylor Swift, making comments in a negative light towards them, thinking that he helped catapult Taylor Swift's career. She is a tremendous artist on her own, regardless of what someone says, and his input is not going to predicate whether she's successful or not. She's an artist that anyone wants to be involved with, and socially, she's a very clean person, Charlton.
Well, I think with her music, Taylor Swift, she crosses over. Now, she has become a little bit more hip-hop, tried to become a little bit more hard, because a lot of the hip-hop music, when you go to an NBA game, that's all you hear, because it's worldwide, the influence of it, even covering soccer games, and especially, Big C, one of your favorite sports, boxing. There's always this hip-hop music going into the ring, whether it was Mike Tyson getting in the ring to fight Holyfield, or even Buster Douglas, or someone like Sugar Ray Leonard. All these great boxers, they love the hip-hop. So Hollywood...
Well, Charlton, the music has a pumping euphoric effect on the boxers, the football players, baseball. Everywhere you go, when you look at the arenas and the stadiums, it's being piped in. It gets the fans up out of their seats. It gets the boxer motivated. It's a mindset that you're trying to get into. And sports is about rhythm, Charlton.
Yeah.
You look at any game, whether it's baseball having a rhythm at the plate, whether there's a pitcher being in rhythm, a basketball player, the stroke of his shot. It's about rhythm. When you're looking at a quarterback throwing the ball on time, a receiver coming out of his break, It's all about rhythm, and that's what you get with the hip hop and R&B music genre being pumped into these arenas. There's all arenas, even in hockey, there's certain songs that you play.
Yeah.
And everybody becomes enthusiastic about it, Charlton.
Yes. Well, let me ask you now. I know you get on me talking about the old school and new school, so I'm telling
you. Hey, one of the things I get tired about doing this program is that you're always talking about my age. And there can be lawsuits brought against you if you're going to get on my age.
Well, I want to.
Elder abuse, that still exists now, Charlton.
Well, we know that still exists. However, a lightning rod topic here when you talk about elder abuse. Donald Sterling, the former owner of the San Diego Clippers, his lawsuit was tossed out of federal court, and they dismissed the $600 million antitrust lawsuit filed by the former LA Clippers owner. And we talk about hip-hop music. That statement that he made about not having too many black people coming to his games unless they're in a Clipper uniform, Big C, I mean, obviously that was thrown out by a judge. Your thoughts on that? He's 81 years old.
Well, he's 81 years old, and a judge, it would have been frivolous to give the man that kind of money, Charlton. He's made a lot of money off of black people over the years, not just as an NBA owner, but also as a slumlord and an apartment owner in the Los Angeles basin.
Yeah, he has
rented, he has had lawsuits over the decades about the improprieties in his home, in his apartment home, and people have sued him countless. Even the federal government, Charlton, sued Donald Sterling about his housing,
discrimination
in Los Angeles to his renters. So this is the lawsuit. He was just trying to seek more publicity. He has more money than he can ever use in his life. He got $2 billion for selling the Clippers.
A lot of money.
And he only made a $25 million investment. I think he got a pretty good return on his money.
Well,
so if he rides off into the sunset and no one hears from him again, nobody's going to be hurt, Charlton.
Well, think about how great David Stern was as a commissioner. Now, we have Adam Silver, who has a big mountain to climb to even be thought about in the same breath as David Stern. But he also named Silver and David Stern in the lawsuit. So what would David Stern do wrong by getting rid of a guy who was kind of bigoted in his, not just kind of bigoted, but bigoted in his thoughts and opinions, especially when the NBA is about 80% African-American, Big C?
Well, Donald Sterling was the one who put the suspension in, the lifetime ban. The transition had already taken place at commissioner.
Yeah.
But I guess he brought in the former commissioner because when he got the ownership, it was under his rule.
Yeah.
So, he wanted to name everybody. He wanted to throw mud up against the wall and see what would stick.
Yeah.
But, when you look at the NBA, Charlton, as we've talked about many other arenas, it's about what's said behind closed doors. Now, I got to look at Donald Sterling from this perspective.
Yeah.
The comments he made to his girlfriend was not the first time that he had made those comments.
You don't think so?
He was very comfortable in making those comments.
You don't think so? He said it's his first time. He really didn't know what he was talking about. He was upset.
Well, his first time with her recording him, Charlton. It was his first time with her recording him. But I got to think sometime in those NBA meetings with just all white owners pre-Michael Jordan, that these comments had been made before, okay? You can't tell me that in the wealthy world of Anglo-America that no one walked around and used the N-word or anything else of those others or black people.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it was a common trait because when I got into broadcasting, Charlton, for the first time, that was a common thing that was used.
Yeah.
Is that it was used to use African-Americans in condescending jokes. And I had to remedy one of the guys one day and said, don't use that.
Yeah.
So what he started doing is that they always look around to see who was in the room before they told a joke. But it went from me to other ethnicities.
Yeah.
And I felt uncomfortable with that also and reminded of him. So why can't you just call it a white guy in this negative joke?
Yeah.
Instead of using blacks, Hispanics, or Asians. Why can't he be a white guy?
Well, see,
you have just as many of those as you do of the others doing negative things also, Charles.
Well, see, ironically, I told this story several months ago when I was working for CBS Sports in production, and I was picking up a friend from San Francisco to go over see the Raiders play, and they were playing another team from the AFC. Now, I picked him up in a red BMW. This is 1998, and he's a Caucasian guy, and he says to me, Charlton, if you see a lot of black guys in a BMW, they're up to no good. Now, here the NFL is about 75% African-American, but this guy, I still see him on the court at Laker games at Staples Center in Los Angeles. He would never say that on the air. And I said, so what do you think about me then? And that's when he said, well, you're different. You're not like the other ones. Now,
well, Charlton, that's what I stated. I mean, it doesn't make any difference which boardroom it is.
Yeah.
When you don't see a black in that boardroom, then you're going to make black connotation negatively.
Yes.
And so it's happening in the NBA. It's happening in the NFL. It's not. Why do we have these diversity sensitivity programs in all professional sports now? You have it in the NFL. You have it in the NBA. You have it in Major League Baseball.
Yes.
Why do you have to have diversity ethnic sensitivity programs if that has not been your modus operandi over time?
Well, see, and I agree that Big C, Steve Ballmer, he bought the Clippers, and he thought that the lawsuit was implausible anyway. Now, he paid $2 billion, an ex-Microsoft CEO, and that transitions in how much money is being made by not just owners of teams, and they should make money, Big C. We know that the salary cap
is corporate business,
is
but
corporate.
You know they're making money. But think about this: the NBA is a 501c3 company. They are a non-profit organization.
Yeah.
Now you can make $2 billion off a sale, and you don't have to pay taxes on it. Donald Sterling did not have to pay taxes on it because he was running a non-profit corporation.
Yes.
Now, how is it possible that you're making free money? You're playing in an arena that the taxpayers paid for you. Then you charge them to come into this arena. You charge them in the parking lot. You charge them at the concession stand. You charge them for a program. But you're running a non-profit business. And the money that you make, got a $200 million payroll for your team, but you're not turning a profit. And at the end of the year, you only made $1.5 billion, and you're non-profit, and the government's saying it's okay.
Yeah,
we're all in the wrong business. We need to go buy a sports team and declare non-profit and make a living. Maybe we have some pocket change there.
Well, when you think about pocket change, this segment is also sponsored by BMW of Northern California. Go test drive the local BMWs. They have from the 1 Series all the way up to the 8 Series, but my favorite is a 750. That's the one that I drive. You also have to go drive the M7, over 600 horsepower. That, in fact, is your ultimate driving machine. Tell them Charlton and Big C sent you.
Next time I'm in California, you think you might be able to let me slip a ride in the backseat? I want to know what luxury's like in life.
Hey, you know how you're in college, Big C, and all your friends that don't have a car, they want to ride, but they forgot they left their wallet at home? Well, if you got $5 in gas, you can get a ride. It takes premium, okay? Premium. And speaking of
premium, that's about a gallon and a half nowadays.
That's about a gallon and a half. And speaking of premium, I know we get on this guy quite a bit, but LeBron James, he's a stud of an athlete, just an awesome physical specimen. He's done great for himself in business and in sports. But this guy, here's a team, Cleveland right now, they're in the first place in the East, but he's making comments about wanting to have the chance to play with his best friends. And this is from the Bleacher Report. But he wants to play with Carmelo Anthony, who's old, Chris Paul, who's also old compared to athletes, and Dwayne Wade with his knee injuries. Why not have conversations about wanting to play with Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving? Because they were in the finals last year, but I think he's making his plans for his exit out of Cleveland. I know a lot of people don't believe that. But why else, if you're in first place, would you make all these negative comments about defending your team on Twitter and also saying you want to play with other players when you have a team that's in first place, Big C? I think he's making his exit out of Cleveland.
Charlton, LeBron is looking for an exodus, is what he's looking for.
Yeah.
He's looking for an excuse with Cleveland not winning the championship back-to-back years since him coming back. Because this team is not built to win a championship. He befriended all of his teammates on Facebook or
is it Twitter, I think?
Twitter, one of the two. And that's very selfish. And he's talking about playing with Carmelo Anthony, who hasn't won anything since Syracuse over a decade ago.
Yes.
Dwayne Wade has won a couple championships. Chris Paul has never won a championship. But he's talking about formulating a team going to the New York Knicks.
Yeah.
That's his plan next year, is being with the New York Knicks, being in the largest media market there is. But with Carmelo Anthony on the same team with him, it's not going to get any better. You got the two most selfish players in the NBA. Well, take that back. James Harden, he has to ask him to come along. But you got two of the three most selfish players in the NBA going to one team, which would be the New York Knicks. They're not going to win, Charlton. Chris Paul will be the guy passing the ball, but now LeBron's going to want to be a point forward also.
Did you see that?
So that's going to hurt Chris Paul as far as his productivity.
Well,
Carmelo Anthony, he doesn't know how to get a rebound, but he can shoot.
He can shoot the lights
got
up.
All these shooters bringing together, Charlton. What the hell's no rebound?
Well, thinking of rebounding, I think one of the favorite commercials that I like, we talked about discount double check Aaron Rodgers, but Chris Paul has one with the State Farm as well as Steph Curry. They have Kevin Love, Deshaun, I think is the big
Kevin
center.
Garnett
Yeah.
as well as DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan. And DeAndre says, "Hey man, somebody stole our rings," and he said, "You ain't got no rings."
Kevin Garnett is kissing his ring. So, I mean, the ring is always the dream of the professional athlete, Charlton.
Yeah.
That's the pinnacle of success. I mean, guys will make millions and millions of dollars in this day and age of playing sports.
Yes.
But so many of the greatest athletes of all time, Charlton, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, hockey, they have walked away from the sports only wanting one thing, and that is a championship ring. So many of them, the greats that we can look back at over the decades and say, wow, he never got a ring.
Yes.
He's in the Hall of Fame, but he never got a ring. You think about Barry Bonds, baseball's all-time leading home run champion.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a ring, Charlton.
Well, I know that might hurt him, but he has a lot of money. But is the ring really that important, Big C? Charles Barkley seems to be doing fine without one.
Well, it is important to a lot of individuals. It's easy to say that the ring is not important when you don't have one.
Yeah.
But you envy the other players every time, especially the alumni. When you're at an event, whether it's a golf tournament, whether it's a program that a league is putting together, and you're there, and 30% of the players have rings, and you don't have a ring, you always admire the ring that the other players have on, Charlton. It is a point of significance. It's like having an MVP trophy, whether you're in high school or in college or in professional. You ask any of the guys, would they trade in a Hall of Fame career for a Super Bowl trophy, an NBA championship ring? Those particular things, they will.
Yeah.
Because it means that much. It's part of your legacy. Money's going to come and go.
Yeah.
But that ring, whether you wear it or whether you have it in a trophy case, will all be there. That's why it's so significant with all the leagues, Charlton. If you go into the NFL Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, one of the things you see is a display of all 50 Super Bowl rings, which will be this year. The 50th will come in with the Denver Broncos ring. You go to Cooperstown, you'll see every World Series ring that was ever made.
Yes.
As well as the Naismith Hall of Fame, Charlton, for basketball.
Yes.
You'll see every NBA ring. So it's even significant to the league to put these rings on display to show the championship pedigree and caliber of players that they've had, but also the significance and how important it is to go right along with those busts and plaques.
Well, also around the league, Big C, Golden State last night won 14-98 over the Clippers that we're talking about. That game was in Oakland. Steph Curry went for 33 points. Thompson went for 32 points. And the Golden State right now, it looks like they are, unless something stumbles down the road. And speaking of stumbling, Draymond Green, I think he posted on some type of social media site when he was driving 118 miles per hour on Highway 24 in the East Bay, for those familiar with the Bay Area. Now, he's not the only guy to ever drive past the speed limit. We know that's reckless, even though he showed it on social media. The only thing that can really stop them right now, it seems, is stupid behavior. And a lot of kids do things that are stupid. He's only 25 years old. What do you say to a young man like that about not screwing up his life?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if it's not screwing up your life, but when you have a vehicle that just do 200-plus miles an hour, it's very difficult not to go out and try to feel some of the power of it. You talked about the BMW with the 600 horsepower. He's driving the I-8 that will do 220 miles an hour. And, professional athletes can afford high-performance sports cars. And when you have one of those, it's like telling a racehorse, you put him out on the track, don't run, just walk.
Don't run, just walk.
This is what I was built for, is to run. So he's going to run. So that athlete is no different than anybody else with a wealth of money. I can afford to pay the ticket, so I'm going to test this puppy out. And that's what they do. It's not that he's trying to jeopardize anybody.
Yeah.
I remember one night with teammates where we were running down the freeway. There were 6 of them.
Yeah.
And we were racing from one nightclub to get to another nightclub, and we were all running 120, 130 miles an hour up down the freeway, just weaving in and out of traffic.
Were you guys in an airplane or in a car? Were you in an airplane or a car, Big C?
Well, we were low flying, as they say. We were flying under the radar.
Well, I think Richard Petty, AJ Foyt, and all those guys, they understand how fast that feels, how to go that fast. Also around,
it's an adrenaline rush. When you're flying in a car, you know you're doing something illegal, okay?
Yeah. Well,
so the endorphins in your body are kicking in at that point, and that adrenaline rush that you get.
Yes.
I mean, you have this feeling of gratification once you've gotten to your point of destination.
Well, when you think about that, also around the NBA, last night the Jazz beat the Rockets 89-87, so I understand Dwight Howard doesn't like running. The Trailblazers 109-103.
Maybe he was out of sync. Did they check him for signal, Charlton? He might have been on his shoes. He couldn't get up and down the floor.
Well, Shaquille O'Neal was saying for a guy that's so dominant like Dwight Howard, he just doesn't want it. He doesn't have that swagger or that want-to-go-get-it attitude that a lot of the great players had, like a Magic Johnson or Kareem or even Moses Malone, Karl Malone. Those guys, with his size, they brought it. And I think he's a good player, but he's just not hungry. He's not hungry the way Shaq was when he played Big C.
Well, Dalton, if you look at the Houston Rockets per se, you got James Harden, who plays matador defense.
Yeah.
You got Dwight Howard, who's sometime on defense. I mean, these were two of the greatest young guns in the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, Howard was highly sought in free agency, got a big contract.
Yeah.
James Harden left OKC for even more money. Now, they can score periodically, especially Harden. He can score at will.
Yeah.
But the defense has always been questionable with both of those. I've watched James Harden, and it's embarrassing. You can put a 12-year-old kid out there on the court and play better defense than James Harden half the time.
Well,
but Dwight Howard, you know, they've always talked to me about him being the dominant defensive center in the NBA.
Yes.
I can't think of any time recently that Houston has stopped anybody from scoring, Charlton.
Well, they got rid of Kevin McHale thinking that was going to be great when he got him to the Western Conference Finals last year. That shows you that job security is only as good as the players on the floor. Last night also, Cleveland 113, the Bucks 104. LeBron James went for 26 points. Kevin Love, who might be with the LA Lakers next year, had 24. Now, Big C, this also, just want people to know, when we talk about the NBA, everyone's really focused on will Golden State beat the Bulls. And I know the Bulls, what's more impressive about Chicago winning 72 games, they did twice, 3 times in a row, world championships. I don't think that will ever be done again, Big C, with the great Michael Jordan. Your thoughts on them having even that opportunity to win 3 of the next championships, and it was like, what, 6 and 8 years with Chicago, Big C?
Well, you know, if there's a team that's built for that run now, you got to also look at the Lakers won 3 championships with Shaq and Kobe now.
Yeah.
And also with Magic and Kareem, they won 3. The Celtics did the same thing in Boston. But if there's a team right now that's built that can challenge what the Bulls did as far as winning the last 3 consecutive NBA championships, that's the Golden State Warriors. Charlton, you have a team that's built on youth and integrity.
Yes.
And when I talk about the integrity is that they respect each other.
Yeah.
It's not an ego-driven team that said, this is mine. When you look at Shaq and Kobe, okay?
Yeah.
It became ego-driven, and Kobe wanted to be the man in L.A. And as long as Shaq was around, everybody was loving Shaq. I mean, the Diesel was an awesome fan and player.
Yeah.
He was a fan favorite. And it's the same when you look at Chicago.
Yeah.
Everybody knew that Michael was the marquee guy.
Yeah.
Regardless of how good that Pippen was, Michael was the marquee guy. So everything fed through Michael, as it did in L.A., where everything fed through Shaq.
Yes. Well, think about...
everybody was comfortable with their roles. When you look at Golden State, as good as Klay Thompson is, and if he was on another team in the NBA, he'd probably be leading the league in scoring himself.
Yeah, well...
But he understands right now, for this team to be great, that things go through Steph. And no one's mad about Steph's notoriety. They're all winning, Charlton. We talked about the championship rings earlier.
Yes.
The championships and the success come as a team. It's not Steph's team. It's the Golden State Warriors team. And that's what they all recognize. Regardless of how good this young man is, they recognize they're only as good as the sum. And some of them playing together are great. Charlton.
Well, speaking of great, this last segment is sponsored by your Ford dealerships. Go see your local Ford dealers of Northern California. Test drive the Ford F-150. They build it Ford tough. Tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Now, Big C, in the last few minutes of the program, I want to get into a lightning rod issue. And I know a lot of times people pick on you when you're at the top. We talked about Hollywood, how when you're a good actor, people want to bring you down sometimes. And when you're an entertainer, sometimes you're going to take the good with the bad. But I look at the NFL, and we love Roger Goodell, $44 million a year salary. But why is he still playing with the fact that they can put a team in Las Vegas, as if we need more scandals around professional sports? We know that the NBA has games in the offseason down in Las Vegas, but why bring an NFL team into Los Angeles, especially with we just had the Rams leave St. Louis. They're back in Los Angeles now, and now they're baiting, saying the Oakland Raiders are looking for a new home, and there's an opportunity that they could go to Las Vegas. Why are we still talking about NFL football being played down in the desert in Las Vegas, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it would be a health detriment for starters, Charlton, putting a team down in Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay, you playing a game early in the season in September when the temperatures outside is still 110 degrees.
Yeah.
You can't cool it down. You're going to end up with a couple of deaths if that's the case. Try doing a preseason game in Vegas in August, when it's 122 degrees.
Yeah.
You can't play in those type of conditions. This is just a typical move that Mark Davis is trying to do. He's trying to placate his dad.
Yes.
Saying, if my dad can make these outlandish statements and gestures, maybe I can do it. But that won't get any credence trying to put an NFL team in Vegas. If you do, you have to take them off the sports book. You couldn't bet on a game being played in Vegas. So how much money would the NFL and Vegas lose? It would not be beneficial.
Are you saying that they bet on sports teams and people don't know about it outside of Vegas? I think betting goes on all the time, and that's why Big C, most people follow sports anyway, because the betting is so big. They bet on everything. Who's going to score how many points per quarter, especially when you get into the Super Bowl. It's just one of the things that makes the NFL work, even though FanDuel and all the other sporting sites out there, they prove that out, Big C. But again,
it's billions of dollars in the betting industry on sports, Charlton. This is not a child's game. This is a grown man's game. Not about playing, but about betting. When you think about the money that moves on a sporting event, you look at the Mayweather fight, Charlton, that they had, what was it? $600 billion was bet on that fight.
Wow.
Worldwide, $600 billion on two guys going in dancing in a ring.
Yeah.
So nobody was going to hurt anybody, but they danced for $600 billion, which is not a bad party to go to, Charlton.
Well, speaking of dancing, I also want to know why the league is dancing around this issue in the last few minutes. And man, this show goes by too fast. We know Roger Goodell, they're not going to give New England and Robert Kraft let them have their 2016 first-round draft choice return. Now, I think there's so much going on with the Patriots and the NFL and the issue with Tom Brady, who's done nothing wrong in life. However, I want to understand Brock Osweiler, who we caught pushing a woman on tape twice, and the NFL is coming out with this stronger stance on making the game safer for athletes. I just don't understand why no one has talked about that yet. And you mentioned there were 2 Lakers that were punished just because I guess they said something to a woman. Why is this guy still being hidden? But we're talking about putting teams in Las Vegas, where we know there's a lot of issues down there with gambling. Also, we just had a team leave St. Louis to go to Los Angeles. Now we're playing the same game with the fans of the Oakland Raiders, who have 3 Super Bowl championships. Why have them even have the talk about moving around? Why not build a stadium in Oakland? So leadership-wise, I think he has a lot to be desired.
Charlton, it goes to the commissioner's office. He is hired by the owners to make the league better. But when he let these situations go like that, where a team can hold a city and a community for ransom, they can pillage jobs. Because when a team moves, think about all the unemployed people that are in St. Louis now. You got all the talking heads on all the sports shows talking about how great it's going to be for Los Angeles with the Rams coming back.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll go back to the old blue and white uniforms that they had in the 60s and 70s, which would be great and iconic.
Yeah.
But also, how many people were left behind jobless in St. Louis? We talk about increasing jobs as President Obama has done across the nation during his presidency. But when you have sport teams leave, everybody can't move. You have people with families that are groundskeepers, secretaries, people who work in the locker room, people who work in the parking lot, all different levels of employment with an organization. All of those people are not the million-dollar players that they can just jump up and leave, or even in the front office staff that they're making 6-digit salaries where they can afford to live in Los Angeles, Charlton. They're not. You have a lot of layman people that are left behind and no one cares about when these organizations move. I remember how decimated the Baltimore area was when the Colts left back in the middle of the night. They left a stadium that went to no use, and it was in a part of town that really relied on the team being there, especially during home games when they had people renting out their yards for parking lots for fans that came in. Just the level of people, Charlton, the concessionaires. These people were not allowed to move with the team. So It is a devastating economic thing when a team leaves a community, Charlton.
And speaking of leaving communities, we know players can leave all the time. And one of the bigger news announcements today was RG3 going to Cleveland, playing for the Cleveland Browns. Hugh Jackson likes RG3. How they let him get out of Washington, I guess a lot of players didn't get along back there. But I don't think it's because he doesn't have the talent. They just had a dysfunctional organization. And I know,
well, Charlton, you know, there's been a lot of talk about the quarterbacks coming out in the draft, Carson Wentz and Jeff Goff. Everybody had them, all the talking heads had them going to Cleveland.
Yeah.
RG3 just changed the entire landscape of the draft, okay, Charlton?
Yeah.
He just repositioned by himself 15 to 20 players going elsewhere. Everybody now is back on their draft ticker boards, reevaluating themselves. RG3 was the most NFL-ready quarterback out there, as we talked about. He and Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick is not leaving San Francisco.
Yes.
Chip Kelly didn't come there to be playing with an empty cabinet, okay?
Well, I agree.
This is his best opportunity of having a solid quarterback in the NFL. RG3 was the next best ready NFL quarterback. He's been to the playoffs, Charlton. Who out there in college has he been to a bowl game? All right?
Well, you know, that's true.
This is a guy that's a proven player. He's going to make Cleveland better. You talked about Hugh Jackson being with the Raiders. He was 8-8 when he was let go. He was the offensive coordinator for Marvin Lewis in Seattle.
Yes.
I mean, not Seattle, Cincinnati last season.
Yes.
What was their record? 12-4, Charlton?
Yeah.
Hugh Jackson is a proven winner. He worked with Andy Dalton. He helped him develop to a better quarterback. Now he has RG3, a proven NFL starter. This is Cleveland's best chance in decades to become a playoff contending football team, Charlton.
Well, Hugh Jackson actually gave the Oakland Raiders their last winning season, and they fired him. Isn't that crazy? But he's going to put together a good program.
You know, success when you're black in the NFL is not always the easiest thing to keep a job with.
Well, like you and Chris Rock, Big C and Chris Rock, race matters, and it always does. In our show, unfortunately, we don't have enough time, Big C, because we have to come to a close. A big game tonight in March Madness, Duke and Oregon, number 4 versus number 1 seed. You can catch that. And also, Big C, you can listen to us every day, Monday through Friday at the 5 o'clock p.m. time, Pacific Standard Time, worldwide on Charlton and Big C Sports. You can also follow us on Twitter. We are growing worldwide. I want to thank our audience down in Latin America for making us so popular down there. Again, we'll catch you tomorrow. Big C, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. You guys have a super fantastic day.